阵，火山喷身，必须躺在周身。
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how we got here and what any of this has to do with snooker. What is snooker? Well, as with many things, we can blame the British. Somewhere in Eastern Europe. Yes, I'm going to give the history of the entire sport. God, if you don't care about pool, just skip to the review, this time code, whatever. Somewhere in Eastern Europe around the 13th century, a quiet revolution was happening in the world of aristocratic sports. Cue sports, also broadly known as billiards, originated as a tabletop adaptation of proto-lawn games around the 15th century. Yes, even then we had no original ideas. It was popular enough to be referenced by Shakespeare, played by the King of France, as well as the first President of the United States. These original cue games more closely resembled cricket, with a hitting mace, loops, and obstacles. There are three main branches of the sport, but the only important one is snooker, aka English billiards. The Brits got one thing right, and that was it. Now, the history of cue games in the modern period closely follows military history, believe it or not, and snooker is no different. It developed out of the British Army stationed in India during the late 19th century, slowly evolving and gaining popularity until the establishment of the first Snooker World Championship in 1926. However, in the post-war period, snooker saw a decline in popularity. That is, until the advent of color television. Then head of BBC Two, David Attenborough, needed a show that would complement the BBC's new color service and selected snooker for the bright green table and colorful balls, lending well to the new medium. And oddly enough, that's the same reason Power Rangers exists, but that's a different video that is coming soon. It became a staple sport of the UK, and it reached the peak of its popularity in 1985 when nearly 20 million viewers stayed up past midnight to watch the conclusion of the World Championship Finals. A record viewership for that hour even to this day. And at this peak of popularity, just 2 years later, a very important figure for this story was born. Ding Junhui was born in 1987 in a coastal province of Jiangsu, China. In a likely apocryphal story, it is said that his love for the sport began when his father was facing a professional snooker player, and while in the bathroom, 8-year-old Junhui took up the cue and beat the pro himself. He began training at the age of 9 with the national team, and by age 11, his family sold their home and business to take him out of school and have him train full-time. It pays not to stay in school, kids. He became the youngest ever player to win the IBSF Under-20 World Championship at 15 in 2002. And in the following year, he became the #1 ranked player in all of China. His passion for the sport was so great that on his 18th birthday, rather than celebrating, he entered and won another tournament in what would be the most widely watched snooker event in the history of television, amassing 100 million Chinese viewers. Then, in 2005, he would go into the sport's homeland to be the first foreigner to win the UK championship. For years after, he would continue to break records, and to this day is one of the most influential snooker players of all time, and is the most well-known Chinese player. With his popularity, he must have been someone kids looked up to. He was out there saying, "I'm Chinese. I entered the world stage, and I made it." It's no wonder then that someone would have the idea to tell his story and inspire the next generation. That's right, you saw the title of this video. Because in 2010, Wuxi Fifth Image Space Animation Production, God, I hope the auto-translate on that's correct, stationed in the same province as the Wuxi Championship he was taking on the same year, Connection, decided to produce a 52-episode 3D animated series following the completely true life and history of Ding Junhui.
我不光要打进你们的元帅，而且要彻底摧毁他。啊！
什么？
居然！
美国队的球丝毫没动。
Despite this premise, it's your standard toy anime. The plot loosely follows a group of kids surrounding themselves with a cocky protagonist who works his way up through various tournaments, teaching everyone around him the power of friendship. Some may object to me calling it a toy anime because billiards is a sport, but the kids use cues based on animals, and all toy anime are just sports anime anyway, so toy anime. So I found out about this show similar to how I found out about Moncart, with my friend Fox introducing the trailer to me.
Dragon Strike 获胜全程，毕竟团队精神。不要害怕，不要害怕，有你有我，为何要害怕受伤害？端着爱心，凭着勇气。Flaming Dragon Strike 我们不怕失败的彷徨，我们带着忧郁的微笑，凝聚的力量与璀璨的龙角，我们一起奔向太阳。
I was, of course, immediately enticed. What was this strange looking show, and what did it have to do with pool? Well, with my friend Ray's help, who knows a little Chinese, I was able to reverse translate Dragon Snooker back from the English trailer into Chinese, and then find someone who had uploaded the whole thing onto Bilibili. The site functions much like Nico Nico, which in turn is basically YouTube, but comments fly across the screen as you watch. So with that, I set out to watch...
同时，在玩具部专区将会举行台球机甲讲座，欢迎大家参观。
Right. So the entire show is in Chinese, and there are no English subtitles. So apparently there was an English sub produced in Singapore, but that doesn't appear to be anywhere online. Fortunately, I know some of the characters from studying Japanese, and Ray was able to watch the show with me, and together we got the gist of it. It helps that the plot is very standard toy anime stuff and could be easily understood even without a translation. And when I say standard, I mean standard. The show can get pretty wild, and I'll get into that in a moment, but for the most part, when it's not battles, it's really just boring and unoriginal. The plot follows Junhui, depicted as a red-headed 9-year-old boy who has never played snooker before in his life. Despite this, he's adamant he can beat anyone and demonstrates as much by defeating some local bullies in his store. He slowly amasses a team of friends, Fan Heiyan, Fang Shidong, Gu Tiansen, and Du Tian. I'm really hoping I pronounced those as best as I can. I used a pronunciation guide online. I'm doing my best, guys. The two latter of which were once his enemies. There's also a girl that hangs around them called...
Yellow Salsa.
Okay, that's not it. Okay, Sasa Huang. She doesn't do anything. Each of the 5 boys, though, receives a special elemental upgrade to their Q animals and are put in the Chinese national team for the World Championship Games. There, they fight Japan, Germany, and Britain, learning and teaching lessons along the way. Until, finally, they have to battle America and the out-of-control fighter jet Eagle Snooker. Now, I really sped through the plot there, but that's because that's not the main draw of the show for me. No, and as weird as this may sound, it is the battles. So, if it wasn't obvious enough already, this show has basically nothing to actually do with Junhui's life. Instead, it's centered around increasingly intense and inventive games of snooker that slowly began to no longer even resemble the original sport at all. That's what this video is really about. I want to get into some of the insane interpretations of pool present in Dragon Snooker. Game 1. The first match starts off normally enough. Junhui's father got him a lion cue, and he wants to prove his skills to some bully. They get to the table and... Okay, so ignore the entire introduction to this video because they're not even playing snooker? The octagonal table indicates that they're actually playing an entirely different class of cue sports. This is an obstacle class game called Bumper Pool. I'd go over the real life rules, but they also are not followed. In the show, though, basically you get a turn to hit a white ball, which you use to try and knock the numbered balls into the pockets. If you get a ball in, you get another turn. Whoever gets the last ball in, wins. This game sets up those rules and Junhui wins. Not by skill, but by the bully magically becoming worse at the game at a key moment. Game 2. The next battle escalates exponentially from the last. Fen Heilin shows off his ability to hit 2 balls at once, making Junhui want to battle him. Fen eventually accepts, and he battles completely blindfolded. Junhui gives him a good old protagonist lecture until Fen takes off his blindfold and decides to go all out. After a crazy amount of special effects, the two of them launch their balls at the same time, causing the last ball on the table to fly into the air and hit the roof so hard that it explodes. It was at this point I knew Dragon Snooker was going to be something special. Game 3. For the next battle, Junhui challenges a gang that stole a little girl's cue animal. They accept the challenge, but not before these Kira wannabes show off their collection of decapitated heads of all of their previous snooker victims. This game introduces a new star-shaped table and obstacles. They have to shoot the ball through little gates to get to the pocket, and the center of the table has a pyramid. Junhui beats the first kid easily, and it's at this point I noticed the liberal use of smoke effects every time a ball goes in, and even when a dude just closes his hand. But the battle isn't over. Where the first guy couldn't handle the obstacles, the next guy just blasts through them, but all this power causes him to miss the pocket. Junhui instead uses the obstacles to his advantage to redirect his ball to the goal, winning the match. Then, the third guy steps up and immediately bounces the ball back into his own face. Yeah, they're playing pool,
Wow,
so that's the other villain.
Oh, he's so cool.
Oh, he's so cool.
It's another Bones from Yu-Gi-Oh character.
Why does it look like this?
This is normal.
No, it is not.
The red guy's the protagonist.
This show is so information overload. Oh, there were like 6 frames there. Why did it jump back to a different perspective? For real, I thought the ball was gonna go straight through his skull. Like a sniper bullet.
I just love he jumps from the other side of the table faster than the ball.
How are they using like Blender models and still have as much like animation as like an early One Piece episode?
Yeah. Animation. Wait, this is...
Bro goes faster than the camera. I'm trying not to laugh because of my horrible illness that I had
please
the
laugh,
other day.
cough, and die.
Flashback. This is just like One Piece. Did he die? No. Squirt did not.
What? Wait, what? What the fuck is... What? Who's that? Why are the Shadowmen here?
Well, see, somebody, when he was young, jumped in the way and saved him, so seeing Zhao Hui do the same
Oh my fucking god! Martha!
Martha!
Not the Martha!
That's the end of the clip. And after it's all over, he never actually gives the girl's toy back. Okay, what? Game 4. The next battle happens when the thugs from the last episode challenge Junhui and Fen to to a 2-on-2 by flipping a table and crushing a pool ball under their foot. Those things are kind of durable. They battle on the pyramid stage again, but this time I just inserted bully name ? Into the script. I'm not gonna double check that. Isn't playing around. He hits his ball so they spin around in the pockets. Instead of going in, they use the air pressure to inflate the inside. Why is he doing this? Well, when Junhui launches his ball in, he pressurized the pockets so Junhui can't get it in. So, Junhui just launches even harder, creating an explosion that disables him and requires Fen to summon a torrent of water to finish the battle for him. Game 5. This is where things start picking up as we introduce our science guy of the group, Feng. He helps Junhui improve his skills with math and nerd shit before proving himself against some thug. This battle isn't too crazy except for, oh yeah, you know, the use of tiny snooker robots as a trap that pop the balls out. I just, you know, up until now, I still considered the show pretty grounded. The flashy effects and even the pool balls exploding can be considered dramatizations. But they have pool robots. This is actually happening. From what I understand, this isn't even like some little magic power associated with the snookers. Maybe some sci-fi nonsense, but this isn't like Beyblade or Bakugan where the fate of the world might rest on the outcome of any of these games. The evil teams aren't gonna get power from winning. So why does everybody care about pool so much? That they would advance the field of robotics specifically to cheat in a match? Game 6. Our regional tournament is starting up, and the first match we're shown is between Fen and Du, playing on a maze with moving walls. This one isn't so out there as it just showcases their abilities from before, with Du dominating some bricks and Fen dancing his balls around the stage to the extent he's getting physically tired, but it does have an excellent finish of Fen herding the pool balls like the Pied Piper around the table into their pockets. God, I love this. Game 7. Junhui faces an emo. So, for this one, Junhui uses too much power and misses his shot. So, the emo tries to use his power to break through the walls, instead just lodging his ball into the wall, and Junhui says he used too much power, so it didn't work. Therefore, Junhui puts more power into his launch to break through and create a path to win. This one isn't even crazy or anything, it's just stupid. Game 8. Okay, so this one's actually pretty great. So, two of the bad guys are fighting each other, and it's got our usual crazy snooker tricks, but the way this one is won. Okay, just watch this. He hits the ball so hard, it is carving a rut into the table before shattering into 8 shards that hit the 8 balls going into all the pockets to win. What? That's some kind of hyper calculation moves I'd expect from Feng. Oh, and also, after the battle, we're introduced to Guo and his snooker, which is presumably sentient and autonomous, as it enters the frame by flying onto his arm. What does any of this have to do with pool? Game 9. It's Guo versus Feng, and we're back to the spinning shenanigans and 4D chess moves. Now, Guo was introduced in the same episode as Feng, and everyone thinks Guo is their friend. However, this is where he shows his true colors. Guo launches his ball in such a way as to put a spin on ball 3 so that when Feng tries to hit it in, it doesn't. Feng starts questioning his data and his understanding about the world. Guo keeps doing this, making the boy cry and winning the first round. Feng is about to give up, but Junhui encourages him to keep going. In the second round, he figures out the trick, but it turns out Guo likes the taste of liberal tears. So he puts a spin on the ball again, this time spinning it so hard, it creates a tornado on the table, so powerful that it blows away the entire audience. But that's not gonna stop Feng, because he hits the next ball so hard it digs into the table, creating enough friction to stay on. But then, This show has just become sadder than Evangelion. Game 10. Junhui versus Feng. Game 11. We move on to the next round of the tournament, and they begin playing on a new stage with a spider design and 3 concentric spinning rings. First up is Du versus Fen, and Du has the master plan of hitting the table until it breaks. He shatters the entire rim, creating a plume of smoke that topples Fen over, creating a hard counter to his candy in a white van ability. Pied Piper. Despite this, he's still able to knock some balls in. But each time he does, the hole explodes, blasting out more rubble. So much rubble. He's struggling to win until he eventually creates a whirlwind of all the balls spinning in the air and herds them without the wall, getting them all in. And I'm sorry, he creates a water tornado to herd his balls? I thought the fire and water effects were just, like, for show? Like with the sword moves in Demon Slayer. So apparently these kids can just somehow also produce water out of thin air. And yep, okay, I'll just accept anything at this point. Game 12. This one actually isn't so crazy. We get our ball busting, wall breaking, whirlwinds. Apparently something crazy might have happened, as Guo gave Du a remote that would help him cheat and win the game, but the power of friendship overcame him and he smashed the remote instead of using it. We get an actually pretty cool 2D scene.
你这种人，我要彻底摧毁！
And a backstory for why Guo is the way he is. Something about how people always compared him to his brother, and Junhui wins the round. Game 13. For the final round of the tournament, it's a rematch between Junhui and Fen. And this one's great. So they play on a table with the Korean elements over each hole, and if you get the ball into the hole with a certain element, that element becomes an environmental hazard, which is actually a really clever concept for a stage. First, they get into the water hole, flooding the track, but the two deal with this easily as Junhui parts the sea and Fen creates a tornado from the water, as you do. They then create an actual tornado from the wind hole. The other elements are a bit more tame in comparison. I think it's earth that raises the platform. There's one that shoots water out of the edges. There's some fire, but my favorite one is the electricity hazard, which, when it hits the ball, just stops it dead in its tracks. Which, I don't think that would happen to an inanimate object. So does this imply the balls are alive? And did the lightning just kill it? But in the end, Junhui wins it, and everyone clapped. Game 14. This is where we start getting introduced to more characters, as some Brits and Americans do some mucking about. And the Americans challenge Du and Guo in order to test their abilities. Not in pool, mind you, but some form of bowling, it seems. The Americans have some crazy abilities, such as producing electricity and turning their ball invisible, and can't be beaten. At one point, Du thinks he's really got them and launches his ball, only for it to get zapped, flying into the air, and then exploding. Honestly, I've really just accepted at this point. And so the two leave, believing the Chinese team isn't even a threat to them. But a threat in what? Game 15. So it's revealed that the kids will be partaking in a world tournament soon. So the store they've been hanging out at sponsors a trip to some resort to train. During this, they all get into a little friendship spat, but fortunately, a nearby cat is about to die. So here's the game. A cat's floating down the river and needs their help. Junhui and Sasa can't help on their own, so they have to work with Feng. They snooker the cat to safety using their balls like skipping stones, hitting the edge of the raft to throw the cat onto... Oh my god. This is beat by beat, the exact same plot as Max's introduction chapter in the original Beyblade series. Game 16. The friends practice together, all reconciled and shit, but are soon kidnapped by some scientists and taken below the store. The kids are made to play Jenga with some magnetic pool balls, but they just aren't getting it. So, the scientists give them some fancy watches, and their animal cues evolve. And look, I have one of the evolved Snookers! We're about halfway through the series now, so I wanted to do a brief intermission to review the actual product this show is selling. So I got the Snooker! This was really hard to find, so I had to go on, I think Taobao is what the site's called, which is a Chinese site that's kind of similar to Baiyi, except it's all in Chinese, which isn't very helpful. I actually had to have another friend, Kitty, if she is okay with me mentioning her, help me purchase this. So I guess there's two proxies. I purchased through Kitty as a proxy, who purchased through Taobao as a proxy, who purchased it. And it's a funny story too, because I originally just wanted the lion Q animal that Junhui used, but for some reason Kitty started upselling me, and she was like, oh, I know the dragon one's more expensive, but don't you want the dragon? The dragon looks so cool, you should get the dragon. So I got the dragon. Okay, so as I said, I've bought one of these things, and I also bought one of them for my friend Ray. So we went to an actual pool bar to try these out. So here we are at the bar. First, we just tried a regular game of pool to try and get the feel for it.
Last one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you still have a chance.
I have a chance.
You have a chance.
You're saying there's a chance.
I mean, I'm not gonna get this in.
Watch you get it.
Oh my god.
I won, obviously. So then we set up the game again, and this is just following the regular rules of pool. I wasn't familiar with the rules of billiards by the time we filmed this, and neither is the show, honestly. So we tried out just playing the game with the pool animals, and I thought there might be a chance that maybe it's sort of like curse and payoff sort of deal, where you might be trading off in power or something, but maybe it like gives you more control over what you're doing. Or maybe it's the vice versa, maybe you get a little less control but a little bit more power. We tried hitting the ball, however, with regular sized pool balls, it is a very weak hit. And we also found out later that it makes it really hard to see what you're hitting. So basically the way it works is you hold a grip, which is actually really convenient because it can be put on either the left or right side, which is really thoughtful and I appreciate that. But when you pull back on the cue itself, and then you let go, it kind of shakes a little bit, which makes it really hard to aim the ball. And this isn't helped by the fact that the animal takes up so much of your visual space, you really can't see what you're hitting in the first place. And it's not so much a problem with the lion and the big pool balls, but with Ray's Q animal, it has giant wings that really make it impossible to see what you're doing, and it just makes aiming impossible. Again, not that aiming really matters because you're not hitting these balls further than like an inch. But of course, this is not how the game is meant to be played. The game's meant to be played with these smaller pool balls that came with the toy. We only had 4 of these, but we tried to set the game up like a normal game of pool as best we could. These balls were able to be hit a lot farther, and I would love to brag about the fact I got the first point because of course I would, if not for the fact that it got caught in the pool table's mechanism and we quickly left the store before anyone realized. So, rating of the toy, really cool. I think they look really cool. Not great for actual pool. They have a lot of power when you use the pool balls that they come with, but again, aiming is really difficult and you just do not have control. And overall, I just don't know what the toy adds to pool, if I'm being honest. I think if you want to get kids interested in pool, just get them a small pool set. That being said, they look really cool on my bookshelf, so 7 out of 10. Game 16. Continued. So anyways, back to the video. With their Snookers all evolved, they passed the Jenga game easily. The 2 morally gray guys, Do and Guo, break in and take on the challenge as well, and then we get the world torn. Oh, what the fuck? Game 17. First up, they face the Mexican team, and they are all identical dudes with cactus guitars and the stereotypical hats. And the only one who looks any different is this giant guy who doesn't even play? I will say I think it's creative, making their guitars double as the pool cue. They've got some gimmicks surrounding a magnetic field, but I don't really understand it. This fight actually really bothered me, because sometimes the Mexican team actually had Spanish subtitles instead of Chinese ones, And I speak Spanish, so I could finally understand what they were saying. But then they just switched back to Chinese? Why would they even do that? Why would they make that decision? Assumably, this was the original home video release with the subtitles made by the production company. I just don't understand. Game 18. And they do the exact same thing with the Japanese team. Why do they only tease me with the 2 languages I actually know? Fox wanted to remind me I actually know a 3rd language, and it's called English. I would like to counter that I'm not very good at English. So anyways, the Japanese team is all anime girls, and also they're ninjas, because Japan. This round, they're doing doubles, and Feng is paired with Guo. It's set up so that each team is on their own table, and each time they get a ball in, it teleports to the other side. So to win, you have to overflow the opponent's table like a game of Tetris. Feng still hasn't forgiven Guo for their last fight, so they're struggling at first. And to make matters worse, the power goes out, giving the ninja girls the advantage. But not only that, the table also has the spinning concentric rings. But not only that, one of the girls uses Shadow Clone Jutsu, then goes on some ninja steroids and I think makes the tables disappear? Also, one of the ninja girls just is her own animal cue. Like, I'm not kidding, she just is clearly launching the ball without any toy. They keep just adding on and on, just have one gimmick for this fight. But it's all okay, because Feng shows that he knows how to write the Chinese character for Earth, and also works together with Guo, and that wins somehow. Game 19. There's some drama between Fen and the Brits, then he joins Junhui in beating the Japanese team. Game 20. The next round is China versus Germany, or rather, one German dude. The pool table is set up like a Chinese castle with the balls hidden inside its walls. Each team member gets to take turns attacking the castle. Du has his usual destroying thing, and Feng decides to carve out his own path to victory. Literally, as his ball tunnels under the castle. The German guy just blows up the entire castle. Then there's the terracotta army, and the German guy's Q animal starts sapping the balls. Junhui is trying to keep up, but his Q starts steaming? Okay, so there are no moving parts, so it can't be an electronic device, right? So the heat must be being generated because it's somehow alive, right? Right? Well, Finn gives him an extra part of his Q to help him keep going, and they eventually beat Germany and tell him he should have loved his snooker more. It's also worth mentioning that while this was going on, one of the American team members was going crazy and his teammates used his snooker like a taser to knock him out. What is this show? Game 21. I'm going to lump the next few episodes all into one battle. So they've flown out to the Great Wall of China. The teams are split into 2 sets of 2v3 matches along parts of the wall where they have to run along it and face various challenges. And they do this for like 8 episodes. The first challenge is a sort of whack-the-mole game. One highlight includes Junhui destroying a national monument and then using the debris to ricochet his ball into hitting the goal. Then they move on to some tile game. Notable highlights include the space alien dropping her snooker, so Fen snookered her snooker back, losing his ball and disqualifying the Chinese team. But Britain decides fair is fair and throws away one of their balls. China then floors them in a 5-on-5 match. Game 22. And we're back to the wall. They're battling the Americans, but for most of the battle, it's mostly the 2 American team members just running away from the blonde one out of fear. Apparently, he has a dark and tragic backstory that caused his powers to go out of control. You see, people used to keep his snooker away from him, and they threw his snooker at him. So now once they have to battle him, Finn blinds himself to get a power boost. But the American launches his ball so that it creates a vibrational tone that blocks his echolocation. Then the blonde guy says, "Nuh-uh," and launches his ball in a way that causes it to fly, and the two balls chase each other in the air. It chases it for 2 episodes, until eventually Finn's ball goes in. But, and I didn't say this earlier, the tile house they're at actually has this special rule where the hole leads into a pipe that goes to the goal, rather than the hole itself being the goal. And I never knew why that was the case, until now. Because the opponent can just launch their ball into the pipe, breaking it and stopping them from winning. And that's what he does. This is where I have to bring up again that this whole time, the other Americans have, instead of been battling, just been keeping the other guy's cue away from him the whole time. Why this one is different when it looks just like theirs, and why they brought it here at all if it causes all this trouble, I don't know. But now, the Chinese team has finally got the box that his snooker is in and open it. The cue is apparently alive and starts flying around its own. The blonde American gets a hold of it and starts getting comfortable with it. He then breaks his teammates' cue animals and then creates a black hole and launches it through, shadow realming it to another part of the map. He isn't even trying to win anymore. He is just out for blood. The cue isn't a toy anymore. It's just straight up a gun as he tries to kill Finn. Honestly, accurate to an American. And I guess the tournament organizers just give up? They helicopter the Chinese team away and just leave the blonde boy there. What? Game 23. I guess they eventually calmed Blondie down, and they head off into a 1v1 match for the final round of the tournament, which is held on a regular pool table. But that regular pool table is in the mouth of a giant monster skeleton? This table is the gimmick of dropping water from the roof of that skeleton's mouth to form the pool balls they have to hit in. The blonde guy has no interest in getting them in the hole though, he is just trying to kill Junhui with them. Honestly, most accurate portrayal of an American in media I've ever seen. But Junhui believes in the power of friendship, and he forms a dragon of fire that puts all the droplets in the pockets, winning the game. But he does so only at the expense of the fossil completely falling apart. Junhui saves Blondie, but he drops his snooker. So Junhui goes back for it. Then the head explodes! And we get Season 2 bait with some new character at the end. Ooh, the only time I've wanted the bait to be real.
机甲较量一下，比赛就是要遇到强劲的对手。
就是要遇到强劲的对手，才能不断提高自己的能力吗？
你怎么知道？
跟我来！
不要走！
我们猎龙不会输的。
Okay, so what are my overall thoughts on the show? This one is wacky. Toy anime is like a subset of sports anime, but with more battle elements, and part of the draw of that for me is the crazy and inventive ways the characters fight each other in non-traditional forms of combat. And this show has that in spades. It is held back in the pretty rudimentary and janky animation with hair clipping and moving on its own from time to time, the flat, lifeless backgrounds, and the random jumps into 2D that I presume occurred because they couldn't figure out how to convey the same expression in 3D?
排队等球台，要排队喽。有空台吗？有空台吗？
很明显没有啦。
不要这么快就放弃嘛。嘿，有了，快点过去练球。
哎，等等我。哈哈哈！
While I love the games, the internal logic doesn't make much sense. I don't see why the players go about setting traps for each other when, if you have the skill, you can just win on the first round. And we've seen that all the characters in the show have the skill to do that, so it should really just be whoever goes first wins. But despite all those shortcomings, the battles are crazy fun, and even though I can't understand a single word of Chinese, they were incredibly engaging. The only time the show ever dragged was during the battle on the Great Wall of China, but even then, it had a lot of great moments that I haven't even covered here. It is a really by-the-books tournament arc and Power of Friendship plot line, but honestly, that's all it needs. It was a wacky and fun battle of the week that escalated episode after episode, even after I thought it couldn't escalate more, and that's all I'm really coming to this for. So, in conclusion, medieval Europeans are directly responsible for the creation of Dragon Snooker. Oh, also, I can't let this go unnoticed. Okay, cool. Subscribe. Bye.